So, did you ever have somebody that you liked or had a crush on, but you thought there is no chance that's ever happening? Anybody experience that? Yeah. Okay. I see some heads nodding. Yeah. So I remember when I was in high school, there was this girl. Her name was Kristen, and she was a varsity cheerleader. She was really pretty and all of that kind of stuff. And then there's me. Okay. And I was a band nerd and all of the things that went on with that. So I was like, that's never going to happen. And she was always dating really attractive, cool, athletic guys and all that. And so when it was my senior year, my friend calls me and says, hey, are you going to the Christmas dance? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. And she goes, well, Kristen wants you to ask her. And I was like, me? What are you talking about? And she was like, yeah, she wants you to ask her. And so she gave me her phone number and says, you need to call and ask her to go. She said, don't be weird about it, though, because that was my friend. Anyway, and I was like, okay. And so now I'm about to call Kristen, and I get really nervous all of a sudden because I think, what if she's pranking me? Because that would be really rude, really, just like her. She'd be really mean, oh yeah, she wants you to ask. And then I call and she's like, no, gross. I didn't know what was going to happen. But I did a call to ask her, and she was like, yeah, I want to go. And so me and her and some friends, we went out to eat, and then we went to the dance and all that. And afterwards, I was taking her home and about to drop her off. She's like, hey, do you want to come in and watch a movie? And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And so we're in there, so we're sitting in the living room, not in the bedroom, because going to the bedroom is stupid. And so we're in the living room watching this, and her sister's there, and she kept saying to her sister, don't you have something else you need to do? And she's like, no. She's like, you have other things you need to do. She's trying to get rid of her sister. But anyways, we're sitting there watching. I'm super nervous, because that's the way I was. I was just, y'all know, I'm not nervous about that kind of stuff. But eventually I got my nerves up, and I did the whole, and I put my arm on the couch behind her. I didn't make sure I didn't actually touch her. And but eventually I kind of made my arm, I finally had my arm around her. So we're sitting there watching this movie. And then I never met her dad. I hear the door open from the garage, and in walks her dad. Her dad is 6'5". It looks like he's been working out every day of his life. He was an infant going, okay, he is a huge guy. He is wearing his SWAT team uniform. He's got his taser, his gun, his handcuff. He's got a whole utility belt on. This guy is huge. And he looks at me and I go, hello, sir. And this is what he said to me. He said, and he just kept walking. I was like, okay. He didn't even say a word to me. He literally grunted, okay? And I learned something in that moment as my young self. I was like, dating can be very scary, especially dads. And I really hope I can be the scary dad someday, although I don't know how that's going to work. I'm going to have to get a gun, a big gun, and cleaning it every time they come. But anyways, I learned they can be scary. You know that relationships can be complicated. You know that they can be messy. They can hurt. They can do all this kind of stuff. So we're spending some time talking about relationships so that hopefully you can get it right, okay? Hopefully you can do it right so that it can be a good thing in your life. And as we're getting into talking about this, though, I wanted to, before we talk about maybe dating, I want to show you guys a verse that relates to every one of you when it comes to relationships right now. It's literally talking to every person except for, the older adults in the room, okay? But for every one of you, okay, it counts. Okay, here it is. You ready? This is from Paul. He says this, now to the unmarried. Are you unmarried? If you are, say yes. Yes. Okay. That should be everybody except for a couple of us old people. All right. Yes, to the unmarried. So he's talking to you. He says, and to the widows. Okay, probably not you. It is good for them to stay unmarried as I am. So he says this, okay, to those of you who are not married, it is good. Now, he's not saying that getting married is bad. He's not saying that you shouldn't hope for that. In fact, there's other verses that say getting married is a good thing and finding a spouse is a good thing. So he's not saying that. Here's what I want you to get from this, okay? That being single is good. And as we're talking a lot about relationships, you may get this feeling where oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm not in a relationship. I'm not even close. Nobody even likes that. Okay, here's the thing. Being single is good. And I want you to remember that. I want you to take that in. Because if you start to see yourself as second or missing out because you're single, you're not right. It actually can be really good. And you should be happy when you're single and enjoy being single. I'll tell you this, once you are married someday, you're going to be married the rest of your life, okay? This is the only time you get to be single. So enjoy it, okay? There's a lot of great things that happen because of this. When I was a junior, I was dating this girl, and I was trying to figure out where I was going to go to college. And my scope was so narrow because I was trying to stay where she was going to be. And none of the schools near her were good schools that I wanted to go to. I was like, I just have to sacrifice and go to one of these. And luckily, by the end of my junior year, me and her broke up. And then I was like, wow, I can go anywhere. Like all of a sudden my opportunities opened up. And then when I graduated college, I got this job offer for a place in Houston. And it was an incredible offer, like beyond anything I could have imagined. And I can get into that another time. But that would mean leaving my friends, leaving my family, leaving everybody I knew behind and going on this adventure. And I chose to do that. And I'm so glad I did. It was really exciting. And it was really hard though to leave that behind. But then I got to thinking, if I would have been in a relationship, I would have had to make a decision to end a relationship or try the long distance thing and I didn't want to have to do that. And if I would have been married, I would have had to ask a spouse, you give up everything too, okay, for my dream. But because I was single, it was easy. I got to go and have an adventure, okay? I got to go do something incredible and fun. And then I got down there and I got my first big boy paycheck. Someday you'll understand what I'm talking about. You get your real job and they get the real paycheck. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, all at once. It was so much money for me. And in my apartment, I was, because I was a college grad, I had an air mattress and one of those foldy lawn chairs. You know what I'm talking about? Those lawn chairs that fold out and they have like 2 cup holders. That's all I had in my entire apartment. That's my furniture. And so I got my first paycheck. And did I go buy a new bed? No. Did I get a new couch? No. I bought a TV. All right, and so I got my TV. I didn't have a stand for it. I put the box the TV came in on the floor, put the TV on the box, opened my lawn chair, got a Dr. Pepper, watched the Dallas Cowboys lose, and it was amazing, okay? And I was like, now, would a wife have let me buy a TV when we didn't have a bed? Absolutely not, okay? But I was single. I got to do what I want. Now, I'm kind of pointing out some silly and fun things, but here's what I want you to understand. Being single is an incredible time of life, okay? And where you can pursue things that you are dreaming of and what you want without the worry about how it affects another person. And God can use you in ways when you're in this stage of your life that you won't be used when you're married. Okay, when you're in college or you're getting right out of that, okay, that's going to be in the near future for many of you. If God says, hey, I want you to go spend a year overseas serving in a ministry, you're single, guess what? You can do that. If he tells you, I want you to spend your evenings serving in this thing or going and doing this thing, you can do that because that's the position that you're in. And there's just so much that you can do even now as single. So I want you to understand this. Being single is good, okay? And so don't look down on yourself as you're single. Look at it as an exciting, good time of life. But we are here to talk about relationships for the next couple weeks. So we are going to talk about those as well. And so what I want to do is I want to tonight to talk about the purpose and the process of dating, okay? So we're going to get into some details of dating, and we're going to talk about the purpose and the process so that we can understand how it works. Because you need to know, okay, if you were playing a game, some of you have played, have y'all played Throw Burrito? Okay, if you've never been to a board game night, you need to come because you're not really going to understand this illustration. So if you were going to play Throw Burrito and maybe you had a friend come and they didn't know anything about how to play, and you said to them, I was like, what do you do? And he's like, just watch, just play, you'll figure it out as we go. And all of a sudden people start throwing cards and they're like throwing cards, and all of a sudden your friend grabs a burrito, right, and throws it right at you, okay, and hits you right in the face, and you're like, what'd you just do? Sorry, you're right there. And everyone else was taking notes. You are too, but you were looking up. Sorry, I didn't want to peg her in the head while she's looking down. Anyway, so you throw them and your hand hits you in the face. You're like, what you just hit me with a burrito? I was like, oh, that's one of the rules. I was like, well, it'd been good to know. Okay, if you don't understand the rules to dating, it's going to be way worse than getting hit in the face with a burrito, okay? It's going to be heartbreak. It's going to be regret. It's going to be all kinds of ickiness in your life. And so you need to know the rules. You need to know the purpose and the process of dating. So to get into that, I actually want to show you something that Jesus said about relationships. Okay, he kind of set the goal, the vision, the end game of what relationships are. And so I want to start there, and then we'll back way up from there. Okay, so here's Jesus talking, and he's talking to some people about relationships, and he says, haven't you read? And what he's about to do is quote Genesis. Okay, so he's talking like, whoa, way back. So right at the very beginning, God had this whole thing in mind. That at the beginning, the Creator made them male and female. So he intentionally made guys and girls. He made them different so that they can be joined together. Okay, so he made them male and female. And for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So a man becomes a husband and a woman becomes a wife. And he says, and they will become one flesh. Now we're going to talk a lot more about one flesh in 2 weeks when we talk about sex, because that has a lot to do with sex. Okay, so we're going to talk about that later. You'll want to be back. Probably. Anyway, so they are no longer two at this point. He says, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate. And so here's this idea that we learned from Jesus, and that is that God created marriage. In the very beginning, when he thought of man, he created marriage. And marriage is this. It is the joining of two people for life. It is two people, and this is an incredible thing that God made. That it's two people that come together and are joined together for life. Now, I know we see this messed up a lot. I know that we see this not working a lot in our culture, but I want you to know this is his design, okay? Is that two people are joined together for life. Marriage is two people giving themselves to each other and loving each other sacrificially. It's when a husband loves his wife like Christ loved the church, where he lays his life down for her. That's what a husband does. And so he is becoming one with her, and she is submitting her life to her husband. And together, as he's loving her and she's submitting to him, they join as one. And it's a lifetime thing that God does. And it's an incredible thing. I know it because I'm living in it, okay? And when it's done right, it's really, really good. And so God created marriage. You're like, that's a long time off for me. See, so this is a good thing. See, usually before marriage, at least in our culture, now in other cultures they didn't do it this way, but in our culture we have dating. So we need to know what is dating, okay? Usually we date before we get married. Aren't you glad that you're not on one of those where your parents pick, okay? Although that might be easier. You wouldn't have to do all that. Just be like, we found you a good one. We gave him 3 camels, okay? But anyways, and so here is dating. I want to talk about what dating is, because if you're going to do it, you need to know what it is, okay? So let me give you a good definition. If you're taking notes, you're going to write this down. If you're not taking notes, you're going to get your phone out and take a picture or something, because you need to have this down, okay? Here it is. Dating is the process of evaluating whether or not you are meant to marry a particular person. Dating is the process of evaluating whether or not you are meant to marry a particular person. Now, evaluating. Okay, you all understand what evaluating is. Girls, when you go to buy a new pair of jeans, you do a lot of evaluating. Okay, you don't just walk into the store and go, found a pair, buy, okay? Like, you come in, you've got you need a brand, first of all. You've already know some brands that fit you and some brands that don't. And you have, like, what the skinny ones, or the wider ones, or the flaring ones, or the high-rise ones, or the low ones, or all the different things. You got all the different styles, and I don't know what they are. I'm a guy. Okay, process is simpler. I have the same brand. I buy it every time. I never have to look at them. But anyways, but you know the size. You got to check the size. You evaluate it. That's right. And then once you get all that picked out, you go into the dressing room and you put them on, and then you evaluate some more, okay? And you're like, are they loose in the right places and tight in the right places, and all that kind of stuff. And once you get all that figured out, you've evaluated, then you go and you buy it. Am I right? Okay, that's how it works. Now, you're not going to get married without evaluating. Thank goodness that's the way we do it nowadays. And this is what dating is. It is a time to see if somebody is somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with. It is a time to evaluate, to look and see if this is somebody that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. So, and it's a process. So what I want to do, I want to just kind of walk through this process a little bit. Some of it's going to be really obvious to you, but we're going to use it to kind of just talk about some things. Now, not everybody's going to go through this exact line. Okay, we'll talk about that, but I'm just going to give you some of the steps that are usually included. So there may be a stage of being friends, okay? And then there is dating. Okay, and then I'm going to separate this a little bit, and we're going to call it boyfriend and girlfriend. You can call it lots of different things, but that's what we're going to call it. And why are you shaking your head? You don't know what that is? Okay, and, because I said boyfriend. Okay, there's a girlfriend. All right, and dating, okay, where was I? Engaged, okay. And finally, married. Okay, now, I'm going to go ahead and make some distinguishing things here. So I just want to say right here is a line I'm going to draw, because everything before that line is a time of evaluating. Okay? After this, it's covenant marriage, and there's no more evaluating. Okay? This is meant to be for life. Everything here is really meant to lead to there. Okay? This is all a time of evaluating, and so there's that. So I'm going to start way back here to friends. Now, obviously, not everybody that you're a friend is somebody that you're going to try to date. That'd be weird. But a lot of times, relationships do start as friends. That's the way me and Tracy started, okay? We knew each other a long time before we ever dated, okay? We were friends, we got to know each other, and once it came time to date, and I knew that she was somebody that I wanted to be with, okay? So that's one way it is done. We were really good friends. Then we started dating, okay? We dated for about 7 or 8 months, and then we were engaged for 6 months, and then we were married. I would have gone faster if I could have, because we knew I had done so much evaluating here, okay, that I didn't have to do very much here. This was basically like we really just intentional, seeing how we went together, and then this is just as fast as you can get the wedding planned, okay? That's really what the point of engaged is. And And so now you all already understand and do evaluating here, whether you had thought about it or not. There are plenty of people that you are friends with that you do not want to date. Am I right? Yeah, okay, yes, okay. And so you've already evaluated, you've already said, that's not somebody I want to date. You already know that that is not someone. So that's, you do this, but what I'm trying to help us to do is to become more intentional about it. But as you're going to see, at every stage, problems start to come up, okay? Like here's one that you may encounter. What do you do if your friend asks you out and you don't like them, okay? Now, if this hasn't happened to you, you're lucky, because this happened to me, and if it's happened to you, I mean, it's really awkward. Here's your friend, you hang out with them all the time, and they're like, hey, will you be my girlfriend? Or whatever, all right? And they ask you out, and it's really, really awkward. So what do you do? What do you do when something like this happens? Well, I want to give you a principle tonight that's going to help you with lots of dating questions. Lots of times when you don't know what to do, you're going to go back to this one idea, okay? So here's this happens to you. Somebody asks you out, and you don't like them. What do? Here we go. Here's a principle. Do not lie to each other. Okay, so they ask me out, so I look at them, don't lie. No, your face looks like a bulldog. You're ugly. Okay, no, that's not it either. Okay, that's mean. Okay, don't do that. But it was honest. Okay, here's the rest. Here's some more of the principle. Let's keep going. But speaking the truth, there's the honesty. In love, very important, let us grow in every way into him who is the head, Christ. So here's the principle. Okay, I'll give it to you simply. Honesty and love. Over and over and over again, you're going to have questions about what to do. And much of the time, those questions will be answered by this simple idea of honesty and love. So somebody asks you out and you do not like them. Honesty and love. Hey, I really like being your friend, but I don't see you that way. And people are like, oh, that sounds awful. That sounds so mean. So I had a friend and he did this, okay? He had this crush on this girl. It was in our friend group for so long. And finally, he got the nerve up. He asked her out on a date. And she said, hey, I really like being your friend. And then you know it's bad, all right? But I don't see you that way. And he came and he told our group, it was like what she said. And we're like, oh, man, that stings. Like, oh, sorry, man. And he was like, you know what? Actually, it's really good to know, because now I can move on. And actually, that reminds me of this verse about it. Okay, it says, an honest answer is like a kiss on the lips. You may be thinking, I'd rather just have the kiss on the lips. But this is what it's saying, that an honest answer it is great. See, this is what it did for him. It allowed his heart to move on. But you know what people do so much of the time? They'll say something like this, well, I'm just not looking for a relationship right now. You know what that tells that person? There might be a chance someday. When you know good and well there is no chance, and now their poor little heart is strung. Some of you are like, they did that to me. Right, your poor little heart is strung along, and what they needed was love and honesty put together. And so that's what we have to do. Always remembering that honesty and love are a key. So here we go. We've got the friends. Now I want to really focus on for a minute this part right here. Okay, because this is the main evaluating stage. This is the main time. Usually once you're here, you've done most of your evaluating. I have heard some people breaking up here, okay, but that's really, really rough. Hopefully you can figure it out much earlier that there's a problem. And so I really want to focus on this. And these can be the same thing and they can be different. Okay, so let me explain how they can be different. I'll give you an example from my life about dating. So I was in college, and there was this girl, she was kind of like, well, she was in band, I was in band, but we never really hung out. We're different friend groups. But she was really cute, and I had talked to her a couple times, and I knew she was funny, and I knew she was a Christian. I knew she went to church and loved God, and I was like, okay, well, those are all good things. But we weren't friends, because we weren't in the same group, and I didn't know how to hang out with her. So I decided I was going to ask her on a date. So I got on the phone, and I was really nervous, and as I always am. But anyways, I called her, and I said, hey, I was wanting to know if you want to go get dinner this Friday. And she said, I can't. I'm busy. But please ask me again. And I was like, oh, okay. So I asked her again, and she said yes. And so we went out to eat, and it was fun. You know, we just talked, and we kind of just had a good time. And then a few days later, I called her again. I was like, hey, would you like to go out to eat again? And she said yes. And so we went out to eat. This time we stayed out for like 3 hours or so. And I remember after I dropped her off, I went back home, and I was sitting there, and I was like, that was really boring. And I started to think about her, and she liked this stuff, and I liked this stuff. And this is what she did for fun, and and I realized something. She was cute, she was funny, she was a good Christian, but we had different lives, and it wasn't good. And so we just didn't date anymore. And now we were never boyfriend, girlfriend, we're in a relationship, we love each other, all that kind of goofiness. We just dated, okay? And this is what it was. It was an intentional time where I was just looking to see, is this somebody that I want to pursue a relationship with and maybe be married to? Do you understand? And so then somewhere along the way after this, usually comes this, I'm going to call this the DTR line, okay? Where you have that conversation that's like, so where do you see this going? Like one of those things. Or one person says, will you be my girlfriend? Or, or however you want to ask, will you go out with me? Whatever it is. And then they become, this is like, usually would say we're in a relationship, that kind of stuff. And it is a very intentional time of seeing how two people connect with each other, how they relate to each other, and what it should be is where they're really seeing if they have a relationship potential in the future. And again, we start having all kinds of problems, right? There's all kinds of things that come up. So here's one. What if someone asks me out and I'm not sure? So here you are, you know this person kind of, they're in your finger, and they ask you out and you're not sure, okay? What do you do? Well, first of all, it really depends on what they're asking, because when you say ask out, y'all mean lots of different things. If they're asking you to go out to dinner, that's one thing. If they're saying, will you be exclusive, be my girlfriend, boyfriend, however you want to say that, that's like a totally different question. Do you understand that? So here's what I'll give you. Here's the advice. Ready? Honesty and love. Now, I don't know why we get weird about this, but this is what you have to say. It's simple. Well, can I get to know you a little bit before we commit to each other? Now, and if you can't be mature enough to say something like that, you're not mature enough to date. Can we just be real? You know what I'm saying? If you can't be mature enough to speak honestly about your feelings with the person, you just need to wait until you start dating. Just say, I'm immature, I can't date. I don't know, whatever you got to say, but say something so that you can't be in that relationship. There's got to be some honesty and some love, okay? And I think I have another problem. Yeah, what if I'm dating someone and we realize that we aren't right for each other? That's going to happen probably, okay? And because here's the deal, okay? And we get all like, oh, this is so hard, this is so bad. If you realize that the whole point was to see if you were right for each other, then it's obvious that this is going to happen a lot, okay? I mean, assuming you don't have to date a whole lot, okay? Hopefully you can evaluate better here, and then you don't have to do this all the time. But so when you realize you're not right for each other, what do? Anybody guess? Honesty and love, right? Yeah, it's like, wow, this is mind-blowing. Yeah, okay, but people get so weird with this kind of stuff. I just don't feel like I'm supposed to be in a relationship right now, right? Or it's like, it's not you, it's me. Yeah, and all this kind of weird stuff. Look, here, it's not that complicated, okay? You just got to be honest. And when you say something like, hey, I don't feel like we're meant to be together, it lets them know it's over. And one of the hardest things, if you're on the other side, is for somebody to leave the option open for down the road. And I'm going to tell you something. That is not love. You think you're being loving by saying, well, I just need to be single right now, and we'll see, or we need to take a break. And you think you're being loving, but what you're doing is you're stringing their heart along and causing them so much more heartache. Because if they can get a break and know that it's over, then they can move on, and they can heal and do all that. And so can you, by the way. And so learning to be honest and loving at the same time. And it's difficult sometimes, and it's hard. I've broken up with people, and you listen to them cry, and it's hard, okay? But you have to do it, okay? And it allows them to heal and move on. So honesty and love, this is gonna be a very important thing. And so what I wanna talk about is successful dating, okay? So we kind of got this idea that we need to be honest, we need to be loved, we know what dating is, and we kind of see this process here. And so I want to talk about successful dating. I'm going to give you, well, first of all, what is successful dating? This is what I believe successful dating is. It ends in one of two ways. Successful dating ends in a great marriage, not a bad marriage. That can happen. You can date poorly, and you get married to the wrong person, and you have a terrible disaster of a marriage and probably a divorce, okay? That's one way. But we want a great marriage, okay? There's another way it can end successfully. A baggage-free breakup. A baggage-free breakup. I almost can't say that. Okay. But now, obviously, if you break up and you're carrying all this regret and baggage and heartache and grossness into your future relationships, things you got to explain to your spouse when you get married and all this kind of stuff, that's a bad relationship. That's unsuccessful dating. But if you date and you break up without baggage and you just realize that's not the person I'm meant to be with, now I can begin looking for someone else, that's success, okay? If you find the right person to get married to, that's success, okay? So both of these are success. So that is what we're looking for when I'm talking about successful dating. So I'm going to give you some keys really fast about how to date successfully. Here's the first one. Oh, this isn't the first one. I forgot. This is just me saying something long, so you don't have to write this down. When you date someone, don't obsess about getting them to like you. Get to know them, share who you are, and evaluate if you are the right fit. So much of the times in relationships, people pretend to be something other than they are. And they'll say things like, how do I get them to like me? Okay, if you have to change who you are to get somebody to like you, that's not a real relationship. When you get one person pretending to be one person so they'll like him, and the other person pretends to be something so they'll like him, then they get together and then they get married, and this is what they say, because I've heard it. You know what they'll say? They're not the person I thought they were. Of course they weren't. Y'all both been pretending for your entire time. What you do is you be you. If they don't like you, trust me, you don't want to be in a relationship with them. It doesn't matter how cute they are, how good their hair is, and if they got abs. It doesn't matter any of that kind of stuff. If they don't like you, for who you are, that's not someone you want to be in a relationship. So here's what it comes down to, honesty. Like, do you have any other points other than honesty and love? Okay, no, being honest about who you are and just being a real person, that is huge. And so many of us don't do that. And if you are doing a pretend game and doing all that kind of stuff, that's really manipulation, which is a type of lying and all that, then you are going to be very unsuccessful in dating. You're going to be with somebody that doesn't actually like you. They're going to like a pretend you that you've been faking for a long time. And you can't fake your whole life. You got to be the real person that you are. So honesty, here's the next one. Intentionality. That's a big word, I know. But it means this, being intentional. So just a reminder, the purpose of dating is evaluating for marriage. So, when you are dating, you are intentionally doing this. Everything outside of that is going to lead you to problems. So you have to be intentional about this, that this is what I'm doing. When I'm dating, I am evaluating for marriage. So I had a friend in college, and so there was this girl that we knew, and she was really pretty. She's like the prettiest girl we knew at college. Okay, there's a lot of girls there, and she was super pretty. And he found out that she liked him and was hoping to date him. And the way he found out was she came up to him and said, I like you. I wish you would ask me out, which would be great. Guys would really love that, girls, if you would just tell them. But she does that. She's like, hey, I wish you'd ask me out. And so he comes and he tells me what happens, and we're like talking about, and here's the deal. So he's a really strong Christian. He helped me run a student ministry on campus. He lived a believer's kind of a life. Okay? He didn't go out drinking. He didn't do all that kind of party life. She, on the other hand, would call herself a Christian, but she didn't go to church. She didn't have any evidence of that. She did do the party life and do all that. And he was like, I know my life is going this way, and her life is going that way. And I know we don't really belong together, but she's really good looking. And so we're having this conversation. I remember saying to him, I am so glad I'm not you, because this is so difficult. And so he's going through all of this kind of stuff. Now, if dating was just about getting together and having a lot of fun and just, enjoy this and just enjoy the relationship, why not? Why not just spend a few years with this person, have some fun, and see what happens? Because that is how you have unsuccessful dating. Because it ends one of two ways. I can tell you how it ends. It either ends in you two getting married and then realizing we're in different directions. Then you have a terrible, broken marriage because you married someone else. Or you're with them and you do all this stuff and all the passion and all the excitement, and you end up making some mistakes and you end up doing something, and then you end up breaking up because you weren't ever really supposed to be together, right? And then you have all this baggage you have to take into your next day. By the way, me and him, we were seniors when that happened, and then we graduated, and it was about 3 months later, he met the girl that became his wife, who he's now married to and has 2 kids with, okay? And here's the thing, if he would have started dating her when he met his wife, he would have been in a relationship with somebody he wasn't supposed to be with. And so it is an intentionality thing that you have to do. You have to remember that, okay? And I'm going to go through these 2 really quick. The right time. Has to be the right time. Now, I'm going to just tell you this next part. It's not from the Bible. It's wisdom, okay? So if you don't like it, you can ignore it, but just realize this is the wise thing. Okay, so I want you to think about this, okay? The goal of dating is this. That's the purpose. Is to see if it's the person you want to do this. So when I ask teenagers how old they want to be when they get married, I usually get a number around 25. They usually say, well, I want to go to college, I want to finish that, I want to start my career, and then I'll get married. That's 24, 25. And then I would ask you to look at your current age. You're 15, that's 10 years. Do you think that you can be in this kind of a relationship for 10 years and follow the Lord and obey him in purity for 10 years? I could tell you that my experience in talking to every human being I've ever talked to, you can't. Okay, and that there may be a time of your life, and I'm not telling you if you're in a relationship to break up, please don't hear that, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, but this may be a season in life when you go, you know what, I'm not really even there. I'm not in that time when I want to do that. And so I'm not going to spend this time dating. I'm going to spend more time with friends and enjoying that kind of a life and enjoying just getting to know people of the opposite sex and spending time. We can have fun, but I'm not going to get in this big, deep, committed relationship with somebody, okay? And so that's just something you might need to think about. I'm going to leave that with you. I personally think it's more wise to wait to date until marriage is an option. That's my now I don't necessarily agree with the 25 number. I think it can be much earlier than that. But we'll talk about that when you get in young adult ministry. We get down into it. But anyways, we'll get there later in your life. And here's the last thing, purity. And I'm not going to really spend much time on this because we're going to talk about this a lot in the last week. But this is what I want to say about this. Any kind of physical relationship ruins your ability to evaluate well. So when you have a physical relationship with somebody, sex, I just make sure you understand what I'm talking about. There's 2 chemicals that happen in your brain. Dopamine, which is the pleasure chemical, it's like same thing when you take drugs, okay? It says, do this again, keep doing this, okay? Then there's another one which is serotonin. Serotonin is the same chemical that's released in a mom's brain when she nurses. It's called a bonding chemical. It bonds two people together. And so essentially when you become physical with somebody, your brain, you lose your mind, you're basically drunk, okay? Like your brain is, you get that, and then you got this bonding thing. So it's bonding two people together. And so you're in a season when you're supposed to be evaluating for marriage, and so what you're doing is bonding yourself with somebody, and you can no longer successfully evaluate, okay? Can you drive good drunk? No, okay, you don't drive drunk, you don't date with sex. It does not work together. They don't work. And here's the other thing. The goal was great marriage or baggage-free breakup. Was that the goal? Okay. It can mess up the first one by this. You begin to get physical with somebody, and guess what happens? You get connected to them in such a way you can't evaluate. Then you end up marrying somebody because there's all this passion and all this love, and after a few years of marriage, you realize we actually didn't have anything in common other than that. And what happens? You have a bad marriage. And it's impossible to have a baggage-free breakup if sex was involved, okay? Now, we're gonna talk a lot more about this in a couple weeks, but I just had to understand that without that, you cannot do this successfully. And so, you can date successfully. Maybe you have to wait. Maybe you have to change your view of what dating is. Maybe you need to start being honest for the first time. But it can be done well, and it can be done right. If you date intentionally, you be honest, and all those other things. So I have a 5-year-old daughter now, and she's going to date someday, like, I don't know, 30 years or something. I know I was thinking about when she dates a guy, what I hope he will leave her with. Okay, if they break up, this is what I want. That she will be better having known him. Do you have a friend that you're just better having, they brought joy to your life, and they look back, even if they left your life, they left you better, okay? That he's better having known him. That she's closer to Christ because she knew him. That he is a guy who pursues God, and when they were together, she grew in her relationship with God. And then finally, that she doesn't leave with regrets. That she's not explaining things to a future spouse, that she's not going, that he doesn't leave her with regrets. And so here's what I would ask you. When you date somebody, do those things. Don't leave them with regrets. Lead towards Christ. And let them be better for having known you. I mean, this doesn't have to be this thing that we make it into so much, where we tie all of our hearts and all of this physical and all this emotional stuff. But instead, let's make it for what it is. It's a time for evaluating and looking for what God has in the future. So we're going to end with prayer in a different kind of way, because this is ladies' night, and we're about to have a lot of chocolate. Y'all like chocolate? Okay. But I like to take ladies' night to end and just praying for the girls. Okay, because girls' relationships can be icky. Okay, and here's what I want to say to you: don't ever get your worth from a guy. Okay, if you look to some guy to see who you are, that's not good, okay? He don't even know anything, okay? Trust me, I'm one of them, okay? He doesn't know. I mean, your worth does not come from what a guy thinks about you, okay? And I believe there will be a guy who's godly who will love you for who you are. So just because some guy right now in high school whose brain isn't fully developed doesn't like you, that doesn't mean anything. Sorry, guys, it's not. Come on. You know what I'm talking about? So girls, I want y'all to do this. Why don't y'all stand, just the girls. Just girls, stand up. There's a whole bunch of you. You're not going to be embarrassed. I'm not going to have you do anything. I'm just going to pray for you. Thought about having the guys put their hands on you to pray, but I know you don't want them touching you, so we're not going to do that. So guys, you just pray where you are, and I'm going to pray for the girls. Father, I thank you for every young lady in this room. Lord, I just pray that you'll protect their hearts. Lord, I pray that you would give them a confidence in you. Lord, to trust in you, Lord, to wait for the right guy. Lord, to live in purity. Lord, to be different from the culture around them. And to live as women who trust in you, God, and live for you in every area, including relationships. I pray that you would heal hearts that have already been hurt and broken from relationships. And Lord, I pray that you would steer them towards the right ones. And I thank you for it. In Jesus' name,